Hi, it's Ma'am Florence again here for another video lecture in Earth and Life Science. Today, our topic is about photosynthesis. Okay, so let's proceed. Let's define photosynthesis first. So, this is a process, a method of converting sun energy into chemical energy usable by cells. And also take note, by sun energy, I mean light energy that's coming from the sun. So photosynthesis, it's done by different organisms that are called autotrophs, which means that they are cell feeders capable making their own food. So we have two kinds of autotrophs. The photoautotrophs, which use sun energy like plants that do photosynthesis, which makes organic compounds such as carbohydrates that are sugars from light. Also, we have chemoautotrophs, which use chemical energy like bacteria that use sulfide or methane for chemosynthesis, which makes organic compounds from chemical energy contained in sulfide or methane. So, in our topic, we will be focusing on photoautotrophs, okay, those that use light energy. Also, photosynthesis is an anabolic process, which means that small molecules here are combined to create complex or bigger structures. It is also endergonic, and it means that it stores energy. And it is a carbon dioxide or CO2 requiring process that uses light energy in the form of photons and water or H2O to produce organic macromolecules. So over here at the bottom, you can see the chemical equation of photosynthesis. So we have on the left side, this is our reactant side or the requirements for the process. And then we have the right side, which is our product side. So on the left side, let us explore our reactants. We have 6 molecules of CO2 or carbon dioxide plus 6 molecules of H2O or water. And also, light energy is needed in this process. Light energy which comes from the sun in the form of photons. And then after the process, after the reaction, we now have our products, which the first one is a 6-carbon carbohydrate. So that's C6H12O6. And we also have 6 molecules of O2 or oxygen. And oxygen is the byproduct of photosynthesis. We know that plants give off oxygen. Okay, next. So where does photosynthesis take place? We know that plants are capable of doing photosynthesis, and well, also some organisms can do this as well, like phytoplankton. So let us look at this slide. So we see for example, the sunflower plant. We know that plants have different parts like the flower, the stem, the leaves, the roots. So photosynthesis mainly occurs on its leaves. So you can see that leaves, they are the best structure to do the job because they are flat. They have a good surface area, which makes them capable of catching light easily. Okay, so these leaves have different structures in them. So let's explore those. The first is called stomata or stoma. So these are pores or openings in the leaves of the plants. And this is where different gases are exchanged. Like what I said, plants give off oxygen, right? And they need carbon dioxide for photosynthesis. So this is where those gases are exchanged. So oxygen goes out, carbon dioxide goes in. And what's very unique about the stomata is that it can open and close because it has these guard cells that when swollen, it opens the stomata. And if it's shrunken, it will close. So there are a lot of factors which influence the opening and closing of the stomata, like the temperature and the concentration of gases inside and outside leaves. And also, these pores, These openings are found in the underside of the leaves. Okay. And we also have the mesophyll cell of leaf. So these cells are located between the upper and lower epidermis. So even though we look at leaves and we see that they are flat, they still contain small cells inside which makes up the bulk of the internal leaf tissue. And it is rich in chloroplast. So these chloroplasts, they contain chlorophyll, which is a pigment, and it appears color green. And then photosynthesis occurs in these cells. So mesophyll cells are very, very important for plants. Okay, so you can see it clearly here. It's inside the leaves. So this is the upper epidermis and this is the lower epidermis. Since this is the lower epidermis, that's where the stoma is found. And then here we can see our mesophyll. So a lot of plant cells can be found there. Right. So I talked about plant cells earlier, right? So inside those cells are the important organelles, which we call the chloroplast. So organelle, which means it's found inside the plant cell. So this is the chloroplast and it contains structures inside. So you can see what appears to look like stacked coins, or some references even call this green pancakes. So these structures are called thylakoids. Okay, thylakoids. Thylakoids contain photosynthetic pigments and they are stacked together. So a stack of thylakoids is called granum and the plural form of that is grana. You can also see some structures here that are labeled. And the space, okay, I want you to take note of this. The space inside the chloroplast is called the stroma. Alright, so let's look at this overview. So these are the leaves. This is mainly the site for photosynthesis. And inside those leaves, if we look closely, we can find the stomata where various gases are exchanged. And we can also find different cells. And inside a single mesophyll cell is the organelle called the chloroplast. So this is the chloroplast. Inside the chloroplast are structures like the thylakoid and stacks that are called granum. Also, these granum are connected together. And then the space inside is the stroma. Please don't confuse yourself with the term stroma and stomata. Okay, they are both different and found in different places. All right. So, you might be curious, why are plants green? I also stated this earlier. Okay, remember chlorophyll, right? It's a pigment that makes the plant green. Why are most plants green? Though there are plants that are not green, right? Okay, so anyway, let's answer this question. So, I'll show you this chart. So, this is the absorption of light by chlorophyll. Okay, this part here shows the percent absorption and this is the wavelength. I'm also showing you the visible light spectrum here. So that is Roy G. Biv. Okay, the red is here. Okay, from the longest to the shortest wavelength. So we can see that the lowest percent absorption is at the wavelength 500 nanometers. So that's the color green. Okay? Okay, so this means that chlorophyll technically is not absorbing this wavelength. So if it's not absorbing it, it is reflecting the wavelength. So if it is doing that, then the color that is being reflected is the one that is perceived by our eyes. That's why we see color green with plants that have chlorophyll. Okay? Compared to other wavelengths here in the colors violet, indigo, and red, orange, they are highly absorbed by chlorophyll, so we cannot see them. So yeah, basically that is why we see most plants as green, because the chlorophyll, the pigment, reflects the wavelength of green. Okay. Next, what are the reactions involved in photosynthesis? So, from the previous slides, I hope you were able to tell that photosynthesis is quite a complex process. Okay, so in order to understand that better, let us look at the reactions that are involved in it. Okay, so the redox reaction. This is the transfer of one or more electrons from one reactant to another. Okay, so please take note, if we say redox reaction, the keyword is the transfer of electrons. Okay, and we have two types, oxidation and reduction. So what's the difference between the two? Let's find out. First, for oxidation reaction, this is the loss of electrons from a substance or the gain of oxygen. So, oxidation, the gain of oxygen. Okay, something like that. So, let's look at an example here. I have a chemical equation over here. So, on the reactant side, we can see there's water. So, let's try to count the number of oxygen molecules present here. So that's 6 times 1, that's 6. So we have 6 molecules of oxygen on the reactant side. And then oxidation took place. So after the reaction, let's count the number of oxygen molecules again. So 6 times 2, that is 12. So as you can see, it doubled in the amount of oxygen. So there is a gain of oxygen. Therefore, that is oxidation. Next, so what is reduction? Okay, in reduction, there is a gain of electrons from a substance or the loss of oxygen. So when we say reduction, oxygen is reduced. So let's see. Another example over here. In this chemical equation, on the reactant side, let's count the number of oxygen molecules in carbon dioxide, CO2. So 6 times 2, that's 12. And then reduction happened. This reaction took place. So let us count the number of oxygen in this carbohydrate. So we can see O6. So meaning we have 6 molecules of oxygen. So it was reduced to half. Okay? So I know that I told you that the keyword is on electrons, but since I showed you a chemical equation, we cannot directly see the electrons here. But another indication for this redox reaction is the oxygen. Okay, so we can see just by looking at this that oxygen was reduced. Okay, so there is a reduction reaction. Okay, the loss of oxygen. Okay, so to remember this easier, let us use this mnemonic. Leo, the lion, says Ger. So Leo, L-E-O, loss of electrons is oxidation. And Ger, G-E-R, gain of electrons is reduction. Okay? I hope you will use this so you can really remember it, because this is useful not only in biology but in chemistry as well. Okay, and so let's go to the next. Now, what do cells use for energy? So if you can remember, I said earlier that photosynthesis is a process where plants make their own food, right? So they have the energy to continue to survive and to exist. So, what do cells use for energy? Okay, energy for life on Earth. Sunlight is the ultimate energy for all life on Earth. So, thanks to our sun, thank you for providing us with energy, since all of our plants take the energy or convert the energy from the sun to make their own food. And since they are producers and we are consumers, we rely on these resources. So plants store energy in the chemical bonds of sugar. That is why for plants, it is very important to synthesize these sugars or carbohydrates because that's where they store energy. And then chemical energy is released as ATP. Ooh, what does ATP stand for? It means adenosine triphosphate. So we will encounter more of ATP on the next videos for photosynthesis and cellular respiration. But technically, that's it. All the energy is from the sun. But also keep in mind our law of conservation of energy, that energy can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only be transformed from one form to another. So we are just converting energy here from light energy to chemical energy. So yeah, I think that is all for this video lecture. We were able to talk about the introduction for photosynthesis. So I'll see you on the next one. Please trace the playlist so that you can go to the next video. Thank you very much.